Hello and welcome to another beautiful evening right here. It is The Desk, and on the desk this evening we'll be looking at something very important. My name is Ramsey Enoch Agbo, and of course I will be discussing something very vital, and it has to do with the appointment of the INEC chairman by the chief executive of the country. I'm referring to the president, of course. All right, the president of the country appointing the INEC chairman. There is a bill, there is a proposal coming from the House of Representatives for that not to happen. But is that part of the reason why we've had some inconsistency as Nigerians, some Nigerians, of course, believe in the electoral process of Nigeria? What does that have to do with the elections in Nigeria? All of this will form part of our discussion today. And of course, you shouldn't forget that Nigeria is still in a mourning state as we mourn the former late president in the person of His Excellency Muhammadu Buhari, who just passed. And of course, as a matter of fact, a lot of condolence messages have been already released, including condolence messages from global television and of course every Nigerian. But then I think that is life. In life, we expect all of these things to happen. How was his life? Remember, he was once a military president of the nation, military sole administrator of the president was a military president. You remember, there are some things, key things that you can't take away from his time as the military president of this nation. Then coming back again to be a democratic president, a civilian president in this nation, and of course you also know what that means, and of course even the then vice president Osinbajo have also sent his condolences to the family, the wife, the children, and the people of Daura in Katsina State and all Nigerians, because General Muhammadu Buhari is someone that a lot of Nigerians have one testimony or the other about, right from his time as a military president until now. The late former president, of course, died in London, like we all know, and of course the president of the Federal Republic of Nigeria have sent the vice president and some other persons to bring his remains back to Nigeria for a befitting burial as it is due, and of course the way it is supposed to be done for a president. But then that just a little highlight and update about what is happening in the country right now. And of course 7 mourning days already have been declared by the president, that is President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who have actually recognized the fact that the late president will be missed. And all Nigerians, a lot of Nigerians have so many things to say. Well, global television will keep you abreast with all of this, but this is The Desk, and on the desk we can't actually get started without making some references to this incident. In fact, I call it unforeseen circumstance, because a lot of Nigerians never heard that the late former president was ill until the story of his demise actually filtered into the media space. But then we want to say, may his gentle soul rest in peace. And of course, he's going to be missed in Nigeria by Nigerians for different reasons. The reason why you are going to be missing the former late president depends on who he is and how you actually got his impact. All right, remember today we will be talking about something very crucial, and we'll be looking at, of course, what is happening with the electorate, and of course the politicians, and the appointment of electoral officers, how that has actually gone down with Nigerians. Have Nigerians actually have questions to ask as it has to do with the people that have been appointed? the commissioners, of course, the INEC chairman, and every other person that, down to the ad hoc staff in INEC, how do they work? But then, from, of course, the House of Representatives, there is a proposal going. And anytime things like this happen, it's either someone is going to court or someone is not accepting court judgment, or if a bill is being passed or maybe a judgment is coming, some persons may say, well, we are not in support of that. And we've had that severally in our elections in Nigeria, where electoral cases have to be settled with some electoral panel being set up. Then court also have had its own share in the electoral process of Nigeria, especially in 2023 election. Up till just last week or a few weeks ago, we still had another judgment coming from the Supreme Court as it has to do with the election in Edo State, the obstacle election in Edo State. Well, I want to look at that today, and of course I will have my guests join me as we look at this bill, this proposal coming from the National Assembly. Could that be a distraction to 2027, or you feel that is the right thing to do? But then, apart from just the appointment of the INEC chairman, do you think there are some other agencies, ministries, and parastatals where they need to have a free hand to appoint their leaders, either by voting or consensus, as the case may be? I'll bring you all of that detail, and of course from time to time I'll be chipping in one or two things about the immediate of course past president who is late now. We call him late President Muhammadu Buhari. One or two things about him as we proceed on the program this evening. Well, let's go on a quick break. After this break, we'll return and I will have my guests join me via Zoom as we talk about these issues. So many issues, and you know how we do it on the desk. The desk is where we dissect issues, matters arising, what is trending from the polity, of course, what is actually happening around the world, and of course in Nigeria. Stay with us. After this break, we'll look at the proposal coming from the House of Representatives as it has to do with the appointment of the INEC chairman. The next returns after this break. Stay with us.
Gabriel, how many people you keep to be secretary in that Russia? Yes, 3. So that's what I wanted to ask.
Welcome back from that break. It is still the desk, and of course on the desk this evening we want to talk about what is happening from the House of Representatives, of course, as it has to do with the appointment of the INEC chair. Well, I have my guest joining me on the program this evening, and he's a legal practitioner and a public affairs analyst in the person of Barrister Victor Giwa. It's good to have you join us this evening, Barrister. All right, we are trying to establish a link with him, but then we want to look at something very important this evening, like I said earlier, and it's the issue of the House of Representatives moving to strip the president of his power to appoint the INEC chairman. Now, these are the things involved. You know, a lot of times people said, well, you can't appoint a chairman and the chairman do something that will not favor you. That's what a lot of Nigerians believe. But some people of the school of thought that whether you are the one that appoints a chairman into office, the chairman will do whatever that is required of him as an INEC chairman. The oath of office has already been taken, and of course he will have to do what is constitutional. He will have to do what are the laws, the rules and regulations binding INEC as a body. And as a matter of fact, it is being called Independent National Electoral Commission. So if it is independent, it means there is not supposed to be an interference from anyone else, whether the government, whether the people, not even his own family members, not even his own personal selfish opinion or motive should actually play out in whatever he is doing as the chairman of INEC. Because as an INEC chairman, we have the prerogative to do the right thing, to conduct election. Not just conducting election, but the election you are conducting, number one, have to be free. Number two, this election has to be fair. All right? But then there are so many things that happened, and just like a lot of people will blame the president of the country if anything goes wrong. If people are hungry today, they will tell you, oh, I am hungry, the president this, the president that. If something is happening in the Ministry of Interior, they will say, oh, well, the appointment that happened, they took people from their own place, they did this, they did that, not knowing that the president has already appointed someone to be in charge of that ministry. You know, if anything is happening, let's say the Minister of Agriculture, because of the hunger in the land, a lot of people want to blame the president. This is what we are facing. People are hungry, people are this, people are that. We can't afford to get things from the market anymore. Well, but then there is a Minister of Agriculture who is answerable to the president anyway, but we should know that there are people in the forefront in these ministries, in these parastatals, that are supposed to run the affair of these ministries, agencies and parastatal. And these same people are the ones that take the glory. If anything happens in your ministry, let's take for instance, let's use maybe a family for instance as an example. The father of the house, all right, takes the glory if anything happens in the family. But then a lot of people will say the mother is always at home, the mother takes care of the kids, does a lot of things, and of course the mother first of all will also know that she has share in the glory, whether good or bad, whether it's something glorifying or something humiliating. All of that will have to go to them. What am I trying to say? Like there is a proposal, privatization proposal everywhere, and of course the refineries, especially, some say sell it out, some say well privatize it, and so many things happening. Whatever happened from there, a lot of people tend to blame the president, whereas there are people in charge of that. I don't just want to go deep into that, because some people will say, well, the president is a minister or is in charge of that axis, that aspect, but that's not what I am trying to pass across. What I'm trying to say is, as a matter of fact, we have, of course, the Independent National Electoral Commission, and we also have the person that is in charge, who is originally appointed. And that's the reason why during elections, especially national elections, presidential election, the Senate, the National Assembly election, the House of Rep election, governorship elections, and all of that, you see commissioners being changed. Sometimes you see that even the chairman is being changed, and sometimes you have ad hoc staff who work to ensure that these things go right. But then the bottom line is, with all of this going on, if anything happens, who is held responsible? It is the chairman, of course. The blame most times goes to the chairman. But then some people are very curious. This is what happened in some parts of Nigeria. By the time a particular party wins the election at the presidential level, you see it flowing down. The states now want to align. All right. Why? Because they know the president is going to come from this party. We need to win from this party so that we can align. But in the real sense of it, it's not supposed to be so. But let's get to the real facts now. House of Representatives proposing that, well, the chairman should not be appointed, should not be an appointee of the president anymore. Sometimes let's look at it from two angles, because they say they want to strip him of the power to appoint the chairman. Remember, the same House of Representatives a few days ago were saying if they send bills to the National Assembly, that a lot of their bills are piling up and of course not getting attention. And some of them are saying, well, these bills are not getting the kind of attention. It's not been passed quickly the way they expected it. One thing is this bill now, all right, the move now to strip the president will have to go through a lot of process before it can actually be absorbed. But then the question is this: is our problem, okay, really coming from the appointment of the INEC chairman? Whatever happens, most of the times the INEC chairman doesn't even go to the field. You see, the INEC chairman, he is back in Abuja, deploy people, monitor, supervise, people take instructions from him, and all of that. You only get to see the chairman when the collation is going on. The central collation is going on in Abuja here, especially for the presidential election, National Assembly, and the rest of them. But then, is INEC ensuring in the first place that the people deployed to do this job are really representing the INEC itself, the commission, the way they are supposed to be? Are they real ambassadors? These are some of the questions that a lot of Nigerians ask most times. All right. Our guest couldn't join us this evening because of network issues. He's still trying to establish connection. As soon as he gets connected, we'll let you know. But before then, we'll go on a quick break. After this break, when we return, we'll try as much as possible to bring you more insight into the discourse and, of course, get our guest to join us on the program. The desk returns after this break. Stay with us. Welcome back from that break. It is still the desk. Now we have our guest joining us on Zoom from Abuja here for one thing or the other. He couldn't join us in the studio like he always do join us today. But now it's good to have you join us this evening, Barrister. Many thanks for joining us. Now we're looking at the House of Rep. Made a move to strip the president of the power to appoint the INEC chairman. Do you think that is necessary?
Well, thank you very much. It's very necessary because that is one of the recommendation of Justice Uwe's report, that the president, who is also a politician at every point in time, should not have the power to appoint INEC chairman, because INEC chairman is like a referee And so a president who will contest election for another term should not have that advantage of appointing an the INEC chairperson. And so for we to have a free and fair election where all parties will be given equal opportunities, it is very important that there will be equal playing field. And that's exactly what Justice Ures made in their report. And that's exactly what the House of Rep is about to effect.
As a barrister, do you see the possibility of this happening? Because we're in Nigeria, it has been like this for a very long time. Do you see this scaling through, this move by the House of Representatives?
The fact that they are even making the attempt, to me, is a bold one, is a courageous one, is an encouraging one. It shows that there is a light. It seems to be light at the end of the tunnel, that they are being that they should be supported. Well, in a system like this where it is winner takes, that is the winner that takes it all, you will not expect such a move. But for the House of Rep to have taken this courage, this bold step, anything is possible. An incumbent had not won an election before until it happened in 2015. When the late President Buhari won an incumbent has never lost an election before until President Buhari won incumbent President Jonathan. So everything must always have a first day, a starting point. So I think that it's possible and it's achievable.
All right. I think from the first response, you said, well, this will make room for free and fair elections. Can we now say the elections in Nigeria is not being free and fair because of some of the actions and inactions of the INEC chairman and maybe some officials of INEC?
Of course, we have never had a free and fair election. Even our details and the data confirm that fact. Nigerians are so disenchanted. Nigerians have lost confidence in our electoral process. Nigerians don't believe in the process anymore. And this is what is shown in the number of people who come out to cast their vote. For example, we've been having elections since 1999. We're having an off-cycle election in Anambra State on the 8th of November. The last time they had the gubernatorial election was in 2021. In that election, out of 2,466 registered voters, the total number of people who cast their vote to elect Governor Charles Soludo, was just 249,000 out of 2,466,000. So you can see how bad it is. So the people that was even 10%, less than 10% of just less than 10% of 2.49 million, 2.466 million people. So it shows how disenchanted Nigerians are, that they don't believe in the system. And so there is no evidence to show that they have been a free and fair election. 80% of all the elections is finally challenged and determined in the courts by the election tribunal and the appeal tribunal sitting at the Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court. I mean, if it is free and fair, there will be when Abiola won the election, nobody went to court to challenge the result. So that has always been the reason why I can say that there will not be a free and fair election.
Now, if the president shouldn't do the appointment, Who do you think should do the appointment, and how should it be done? Because the president make recommendations and of course do the appointments. I don't know, maybe some people in his cabinet do the recommendation, or he recommends to the National Assembly, or how do you want it done? How do you think it should be done legally?
The West panel recommended that members of NJC, National Judicial Council, or a specific constitutional council should recommend. They particularly recommended NJC to be the body to appoint an chairman from a pool that would have been the post of the INEC chairman will be advertised publicly. Interested persons that meet certain conditions, that meet the conditions, will apply. It will be vetted. Then the members of the NJC will recommend and nominate one person for the position of the INEC, subject to ratification by the National Assembly. So that is what is the West recommendation.
A barrister, as it is right now, because a lot of Nigerians are very skeptical when it comes to anything that has to do with election. Now that 2027 is around the corner, you can see that a lot is happening. You can see people running from one party to the other in the name of the faction. You see people forming a coalition to at least push aside the sitting government, this administration right now. Now, let's look at the INEC now, for instance. Even the chairman of INEC, if the chairman is appointed, all right, by MJC, all right, if they do pick out of a lot of people that apply, what about the other officials of INEC? Don't you think that they can also make things, or do you think these appointments will make elections free and fair? What about the people down the line, the other officials? Because even the chairman doesn't go to the field, but then these things speculated still happen as the election, people thinking it's not being free and fair. So what do you think should be done because of other people along the line?
Well, when the decadence of a thing begins from the head, so when the head is decayed, all other part of the body will follow. So the recommendation is that all the REC also will be appointed by the NJC from the various persons that have submitted themselves and that are qualified. Then these people will now recruit their subordinates, people that will work with them. The problem with Nigeria has always been leadership. If you have a good leader, the followers will just follow suit. So if you have somebody who is genuine, if you have somebody who is dispassionate, if you have somebody who is committed, there will be a free and fair election that is devoid of political influences and corruption. So when the NDC screen and get the chairman and the resident electoral commissioners in every state, it is the INEC chairman now that will undertake the recruitment process to bring in new men and new women into the commission to ensure that we have a free and fair process.
A lot of people are thinking that the coalition is going to make a lot of difference in 2027. What's your thought?
Well, we don't believe that. I don't believe that the coalition will make a lot of difference. And anybody that believes that is making a big mistake. It's on a white goof chase. And the reason is because the coalition is made up of disenchanted persons from the same political parties and some other political parties. What I can tell you the coalition for now is interested in is, first of all, how to remove, how to defeat the incompetent president, because in their mind they believe that the incumbent president has not met up to expectation. So they are more interested in unseating the incumbent president, then coming out with an alternative policies, alternative programs, alternative economic programs, alternative ideas that will help this nation. So I can tell you that the primary motive of the coalition is to unseat the current president. The president they believe that have not met the expectation of the people, and so that is just the primary objective of the coalition.
All right, Barrister. A lot of people, while we were speaking about election be free and fair in Nigeria, some persons were saying, well, some judicial officers have also compromised in the process, and of course dancing to the tune of some politicians as far as elections in Nigeria is concerned. What do you think about that? Can you call that an allegation? You're a legal practitioner.
Well, all the arms of government have been informed. Are part of the subversion of the electoral process, from the legislature to the executive to the judiciary. So I cannot say, and I cannot speak here and say that the members, officers of judiciary have not been found to be culpable in such subversion of the electoral process. So it is been it's a commonplace that everybody believes. That's the point. People will tell you that if you are not happy, this land, go to court. And even these politicians that are saying, if you are not happy, go to court, because according to the belief of Nigerians, the politicians have compromised the judicial officers. And so even that in general made it at the point that justice seems to be for the highest bidder. So the judiciary is not insulated for such corrupt practices. But the good thing about the judiciary is that they have a way of regulating themselves. That's just the advantage that judiciary has over the other arms of government.
What can be done? Because we can't continue like this. This is a proposal coming from the House of Rep, and their target is just the chairman. Now, what about these other systems? All right. What about this other system? We talk about the judiciary, we talk about the executive, then we talk about the legislature. What do you think can be done to get the whole system sanitized?
Well, changing the head is for us is very fundamental. If you have a good INEC chairperson, everybody, when you know that when you are appointed, you cannot be removed except you have served your term. There is job security, there is office security, there is office protection. Everybody will want to be up and doing. People will want to contest election in a free and fair manner. People will not be depending on rigging. People will not be depending on writing of results. Nigeria will gain confidence in the system. So when you have one right person in a position, especially at the end of affair, a lot of difference can be made. It will radiate that kind of his personality into other sector, and then we will now see a multiplication of that person in other arms, in other segments. We will see a transparent, if we see a transparent INEC chairman, we are very likely to see a transparent Inspector General of Police. We are very likely to see a transparent DSS director. Is highly likely to see a transparent EFCC chairman, because nobody want to be behind. Everybody want to queue into the line that will guarantee security and gain public confidence. So that is exactly what we are looking at.
All right. Our time is fast spent, but before I let you go, I think I need to ask you just a few questions about the election in Nigeria, because most times there are observers. You've been an observer, you've observed elections in Nigeria before, and of course you see how the electorates behave, all right? So do you think the electorate also have a hand in what we call not having the free and fair election? Do you want to speak to the electorate?
Of course, the electorate, you and I, they have also contributed to the challenge we have with the electoral process. Some of them have been victimized. Some of them have been transactionalized. What I mean by transactionalized is that the electoral process becomes a transaction. Come and vote for me, I will give you a bag of rice. Come to the polling unit and vote for party A, and you get 10,000 naira. For the past 5 elections, in almost 5 electoral cycles, we have seen vote buying from 5,000 to 10,000 from A political party. It moved to 10,000 by A to 20,000 by B. In the election in Edo State, it became 20,000 and 30,000 from the 2 major political parties. So people go to election now to vote just to either make money for themselves and get something for themselves. So the electorate themselves are part of the problem. But again, there's a limit at which you can blame them, because these are people who have been pauperized, who the politicians have weaponized poverty, and it's like a fish that have not been fed and now sees a worm in a hook. It doesn't consider, the fish does not consider the hook, it just takes jump on the worm, and before he knows, he's hooked. So that is where we are. Electorate jump at the worm that they get at the polling units in form of financial inducement. And by the time they finish voting, they now discover that they have imposed or superimposed upon themselves 4 years of hardship, 4 years of a non-listening politician, 4 years of exploitation. So that's what we have. So the electorate have also been part of the problem.
Thanks for joining us on the desk today. Well, we thought we were going to have you in the studio, but then we couldn't make it because of a series of meetings that you've had today and other activities. But then many thanks for joining us on the desk this evening.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so sorry. I was in another TV station some couple of hours ago. I'm so sorry for not being able to come. But next time, I promise I'll be in the studio at the proper time.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Barrister. All right. Well, you've heard from my guest, and of course, this is what we see in Nigeria, because the sanitization in the electoral process, not just in the electoral process, but even in the commission, in INEC itself, it's not just the top alone, because this is something that has eaten deeply into the fabric of the commission, as the case may be. We've been privileged to cover 1 or 2 elections before, and some of the things that happened even at the grassroots will amaze you. Like my guests have said, some persons are transactional when it comes to making this election free and fair, and some persons even sell their rights just because of what they can get immediately. And that's the reason we get to hear of vote buying and all of that. But then, well, the proposal has been made, the move is on to strip the president of his powers to appoint the INEC chairman. How far will they be able to go? The move in the first place, according to my guest, is a step in the right direction. But let's keep our fingers crossed and see how that is going to end. Many thanks for joining us on the desk this evening. The desk will come on your way again. My name is Ramsey Enoch Agbo. Many thanks for joining us. Bye-bye for now.